Eli Mercer's shuttle hummed as it broke through Kashir's upper atmosphere. The view was breathtaking, an ocean world stretching endlessly, cliffs that rose like the spines of ancient beasts, and a spire hovering above the water that looked older than time. Eli adjusted his flight jacket, wiped a streak of grease from his hand, and tried to calm his nerves. He was a salvage pilot, not a judge. Yet today, the council of a coastal clan insisted he make a choice that would decide life or death for two sisters. The landing pad was crowded. Metallic guards in angular armor flanked two girls. One had storm gray eyes and a sharp, calculating look. The other had soft brown eyes, a warm smile, and an air that made Eli's chest tighten. They were sisters, yet opposites in every way. The clan elders called them Maya and Lara. The tribunal that had summoned him looked at Eli as if he were both a pawn and a savior. "You are human," one of the elders said, voice echoing against the spire. "Neutral. You have no blood claim. You alone must choose. One sister will live. One sister will die. Choose wisely." Eli opened his mouth to argue, but the stern faces of the elders and the quiet dignity of the sisters froze him. He had faced danger, smuggled illegal cargo past orbital patrols, and survived pirates. But never had he been asked to pick between two lives. Not on paper, not in some ethical exercise, but in front of an entire clan, with cameras rolling, and with automated guardians waiting to enforce his decision. I can't," Eli said, though his voice trembled. "There has to be another way. A law that kills its own children. That can't be right." "The law is old," another elder said. "It is ancient, and yet it is our law. You must obey or both will die." Maya's expression was hard. She stepped forward. "We do not ask you to like it. We only ask you to choose." Lara, by contrast, gave Eli a small, anxious smile, but she did not speak. Her silence was heavy. Eli was ushered to a side chamber, and the elders handed him dossiers. Technical reports, medical evaluations, social analyses. He glanced at them. Maya's skills were exceptional. She could run the spire's energy systems, repair the old harvesters, and maintain water filtration for the whole coast. Lara, in contrast, had a different kind of strength. She had a way with people, could negotiate with neighboring clans, and had preserved cultural knowledge that kept small houses from collapsing into despair. Each sister could save the clan in her own way, but the law demanded only one survive. The tribunal left, leaving Eli alone with the sisters. Maya spoke first. "If you choose me," she said, "we will survive. Not perfectly, not happily, but we will survive. Systems fail here. Droughts, storms, shortages. If I live, we live." Lyra's voice was quieter. "If you choose me, you choose hope. Bonds with neighbors, families, the future beyond this coastline. I cannot fix the machines, but I can keep the people together. We may not have the water, but we will have each other. We may not survive every storm, but we will endure." Eli rubbed his forehead. His mind spun. One sister promised survival, the other promised unity. How could he measure one life against the other? How could he measure hope against skill? At night he wandered the narrow streets of the coastal town below the spire. Children ran with patched clothes, and elders tended gardens on rooftops. Water pumps wheezed and coughed, some broken, some repaired with bits of scavenged metal. People were smiling despite hardship. Eli saw the human patterns he recognized: cooperation, small kindnesses, improvisation. He realized quickly that whichever sister he chose, the community itself could carry forward. Perhaps the law was wrong, but survival did not rest solely on one person. The next morning, Eli requested to meet the sisters individually. Maya took him to the engineering vault. Rusted pipes ran like veins along the walls, and holographic control panels flickered with ancient energy. "This is life," she said. "The machines work only if I maintain them. Fail here and half the coast dies in 3 seasons. I am necessary." Then Lara guided him to the plaza where children practiced dances and plays. The sun shone on faces full of hope. "This is life too," she said. "If I survive, I can restore alliances. I can bring neighbors to trade and help. I can preserve our culture and our families. We may have less, but we will be alive in another way. You have to see both paths." Eli spent the day trying to understand the law. He studied ancient documents stored in the Spire archives. The law had been designed centuries ago to stop feuds by forcing outsiders to choose between heirs, thus breaking cycles of revenge. Now automated guardians enforced it, utterly blind to negotiation. One signature from a neutral outsider triggered either death or survival. The tribunal had demanded him because humans were unpredictable, a trait the law's creators had counted on. By late evening, Eli had an idea. The Guardians, ancient and precise, could not distinguish intent beyond code. The protocol could be diverted. If both sisters agreed to cooperate, they could engage the Guardian systems in a way that would save both. It was risky. Discovery meant immediate execution. Yet for the first time he saw a possible path that did not involve choosing between life and death. He explained the idea to Maya first. Her jaw tightened. It's dangerous. If we fail, both of us die. Are you certain? I don't want to choose, Eli admitted. I don't want to kill either of you. There might be a way to keep you both alive if we work together. Maya hesitated, then nodded. Lara, when told, smiled softly and agreed. Then let's do it, she said. If this fails, at least we tried. But the hardliners within the clan were not idle. They had always benefited from the ritual. A sabotage of the water pump the next morning was blamed on reformers trying to avoid the law. Panic spread. The tribunal demanded Eli announce his choice immediately. Cameras streamed live across the coast. The sisters prepared themselves for the worst, standing together but knowing the ritual would likely select one of them. Eli did not flinch. He signaled the start of the diversion. Maya worked in the engineering vault, typing codes and rerouting energy flows. Lara mobilized the coastal network, sending attestations from neighboring houses and allies to suspend the law temporarily. The Guardians hummed, unaware that the commands they would soon receive were designed to preserve both lives. The crowd grew restless. Some cheered. Some jeered. The tribunal's enforcers tightened security. Eli felt the weight of the world pressing down. He glanced at the sisters. Maya's eyes were steel, Lara's heart open. Both relied on him. Both were counting on his judgment, even as they contributed everything they could. Time ran short. The tribunal initiated the final countdown. Eli placed his hands on the console. Sweat stung his eyes. He executed the first sequence, watching the Guardians react. The machines began to obey a command that seemed like an authorized execution order. Then Lara's attestations came through. The Guardians recognized the multi-signature override. Instead of executing the ritual, they entered a quarantine mode. The law's enforcement was suspended, and both sisters were technically safe. The hardliners shouted, some attempting to storm the vault. Maya rerouted power to create safe zones. Lara guided families to form protective lines around critical systems. Eli coordinated with the few reformers still loyal. The Guardians remained blind to the human ingenuity unfolding around them. The crowd outside did not fully understand what had happened. They only saw the sisters standing alive. Some cheered. Others whispered doubts. The tribunal looked furious. Cameras streamed every moment. Eli realized this was only the beginning. The law had been subverted, yes, but the clan now had to confront its traditions and governance. Maya and Lara, once rivals for survival, now stood together. Each had grown through the ordeal. Maya had learned to value empathy and trust alongside technical skill. Lara had learned the necessity of action and planning alongside hope. The sisters were no longer simply heirs. They were leaders in a new sense, ready to guide the clan through reform. Eli, worn out and wary, stepped back. He had broken the ritual. He had saved 2 lives. But the hardliners remained, watching, plotting, and waiting. The public cameras continued to record. The clan had survived the first challenge, but its future depended on careful negotiation, courage, and cooperation. For Eli, the impossible choice had been avoided, but at great risk. He had learned that humans could improvise, create, and reframe impossible situations. He had learned that life did not need to be reduced to binary choices, even when ancient laws demanded otherwise. And most of all, he had learned that sometimes saving lives required more than choosing one over the other. It required daring to choose differently. As night fell, the spire's lights reflected on the ocean, twin beacons for 2 sisters who would now face the world together. And Eli, exhausted but resolute, knew the next day would bring new challenges. The impossible choice was not over. It had only transformed. The first hum of the sentinel array echoed through the vault like a living heartbeat. Eli's hands hovered over the console, and Maya's fingers danced across the controls with steady precision. Lara's voice came faintly from the plaza, amplified over hacked broadcast channels. She called out instructions, coordinating attestations from the neighboring houses and smaller clans, ensuring that the legal suspension of the ritual would be recognized. Every second mattered. Every second could mean the difference between life and death. Outside, the crowd had grown restless. Cameras streamed live footage of the sisters standing together, waiting for a choice that never came. The elders had tightened their formation, guards at the ready, but their faces betrayed anxiety. No one had expected the human arbitrator to find a loophole, to challenge a law that had stood unbroken for centuries. "Eli," Maya said, her voice firm yet strained. "The override sequence is ready. Once we engage it, the Guardians will accept the diversion. But if the hardliners intervene, the system could lock us out permanently." "I know," Eli replied, wiping sweat from his brow. "We don't have a choice anymore. We either do this together, or the law decides for us." He initiated the first command. The lights on the array flickered as the Guardians acknowledged what appeared to be a valid authorization. For a brief moment, the ritual seemed to proceed as planned. But instead of targeting one sister for death, the array paused, running subroutines that no one had seen in centuries. Lara's attestations began to stream in, votes from allied houses, confirmations of temporary stewardship, legal suspensions of the old charter. The Guardians, ancient and unyielding, recognized the legitimacy of these multi-signature commands. Maya exhaled. "It's working," but the relief was short-lived. A squad of hardliners surged toward the engineering vault, their armor glinting under the spire's lights. They had discovered the diversion and would not allow it to succeed. Eli glanced at the sisters. "We hold them off until the system finishes," he said. Lyra guided families and volunteers into strategic positions, forming human shields to protect key conduits. "Don't hurt anyone," she called to the crowd. "We can stop this without blood." Maya rerouted power, creating safe zones and temporarily disabling weapon systems that could threaten the citizens. The Guardians, now partially autonomous, maintained lockdown in neutral zones, preventing the hardliners from causing immediate harm. The hardliners were relentless. They attempted to seize the vault's core, believing that the ritual could only be completed by physical control of the array. Eli and Maya worked furiously, their hands synchronized with urgency. The screens displayed the countdown clock. The tribunal expected a final decision at any moment, and the eyes of the entire coast, and beyond, were watching. Eli's mind raced. He knew the Guardians were precise but predictable. If he could redirect just a fraction of their attention toward maintenance routines, the hardliners could be trapped without harm. He typed rapidly, issuing commands that rerouted power and diverted the Guardians' patrol patterns. At the same time, Lara's broadcast reached every corner of the coast, telling citizens to stand firm and stay calm. A young guard hesitated, looking at the families surrounding the engineers. Lara's voice reached him through a comms channel. "You protect your people. Do not strike them. You can enforce order without violence." The guard lowered his weapon, then another, and soon a trickle became a halt. The hardliners' assault stalled. Citizens began to murmur, then cheer, as it became clear that the ritual would not proceed as expected. Eli glanced at Maya. Almost there. Just a few more seconds. Sweat streaked down his face. His heart raced, and he thought of all the choices that had led him here. The flights across hostile space, the risky salvage jobs, the silent prayers that no one else would see. Now a choice bigger than any he had faced was in his hands. He took a deep breath and pressed the final command. The sentinel array hummed deeply, and a beam of light swept across the vault. Systems engaged in preservation mode, quarantining the tribunal's enforcement mechanisms. Instead of executing the ritual, the Guardians initiated an ancient protocol designed to protect the clan until a lawful council could convene. Both sisters were alive. Both were free from the threat of the ritual. The crowd outside erupted into cheers. Some shouted in disbelief. Cameras captured every moment, broadcasting live across the coast and to neighboring systems. Eli felt a weight lift, but he knew the battle was not entirely over. The hardliners were furious and still plotted. Maya and Lara stepped forward together, facing the tribunal. Maya's voice rang with authority. "The ritual cannot continue. The law is suspended and the Guardians now obey a new protocol. We have chosen life over death, hope over fear." Lara added, "Our clan will decide its future together." No one life is greater than another. We will rebuild, and we will lead with courage and wisdom. The tribunal's faces hardened, but the Guardians' mechanical obedience left them powerless. Attempts to override the diversion failed. They could not execute the law without risking the destruction of the entire spire. Eli watched as the sisters turned to the people. Families, volunteers, and allied clan members moved to secure the vault and reinforce community bonds. Children laughed, elders smiled, and even some former hardliners looked unsure. The spectacle of violence that had been expected never came. The impossible choice had been avoided. But the clan now faced a new challenge: how to govern themselves without relying on an ancient law that demanded sacrifice. Eli suggested a new path. "You need a council," he said. "Not just one ruler or one ritual. Representatives from each house guided by the sisters making decisions together. The Guardians can enforce rules, but the people must choose their leaders." Maya nodded, seeing the logic. "I can maintain the spire and the systems. That gives us stability." Lyra smiled, her eyes bright. "And I can maintain the social bonds and alliances. That gives us strength." Eli realized that the two sisters, once rivals, now complemented each other perfectly. Together they could lead the clan through reform, preserving both the technology and the culture. Both survival and hope were possible. The hardliners did not disappear quietly. They attempted to call a competing assembly, hoping to assert the old law by force. But the people, emboldened by the sisters' leadership and the human arbitrator's intervention, refused to comply. International observers and allied clans sent messages of support, adding diplomatic pressure. The hardliners found themselves isolated. Maya worked tirelessly, rerouting energy flows and repairing critical systems, ensuring the Guardians remained aligned with the new council's authority. Lyra traveled through the town, encouraging families to submit attestations and reinforcing the suspension of the old charter. Their combined efforts created a model of cooperation the clan had never seen before. Days later, the convocation met. Representatives from each house gathered, weary but determined. Arguments were heated, voices raised, but the sisters presided with fairness and clarity. The old law was formally retired, replaced with a phased governance plan that combined tradition with democracy. Multi-signature stewardship of the Spire's Guardians was codified, ensuring no single person could enforce life or death decisions alone. The people celebrated cautiously. Children ran through repaired streets. Elders tended rooftop gardens, and the harvester hummed steadily once more. Maya and Lyra shared moments of quiet triumph, acknowledging each other's contributions and growth. Maya had learned the value of empathy and trust alongside technical skill, while Lyra had discovered that hope alone was not enough without planning and action. Eli prepared to leave. He had come to Keshar as a salvage pilot, not a hero. Yet in saving the sisters and guiding the clan toward a better future, he had witnessed humanity at its best, resourceful, moral, and willing to challenge impossible odds. The sisters insisted he stay for a celebratory meal, but he declined politely, knowing he had other missions to complete. Before leaving, the sisters presented him with a small plaque. It bore their signatures along with his and a simple human proverb. "Choice is not to end life. It is to begin it." Eli smiled, touched by the gesture. As his shuttle rose above the cliffs, he looked down on the ocean, the spire, and the clan below. Life was messy, unpredictable, and full of impossible choices. But with courage, cooperation, and a refusal to accept either or, when a both-and was possible, people could survive and thrive in ways that ancient laws never imagined. The sisters stood on the docks, waving. Maya adjusted her jacket against the salty wind, and Lyra laughed softly at a child chasing a seagull. Eli felt hope swell in his chest. He knew the world he left behind would continue to grow, learn, and endure. And somewhere in the midst of the ocean, on a small world that had once demanded sacrifice, two sisters were alive, and the impossible choice had become a triumph of life. Eli's shuttle disappeared into the horizon, leaving behind a clan transformed, a people united, and a story that would be told for generations. The impossible choice had been met, not with death, but with human ingenuity, courage, and the belief that life could be protected without surrendering morality. Months later, the spire hummed steadily. Crops grew along the floodplains, the harvester ran without interruption, and children played without fear. Maya monitored the energy grids while